Hello, hello! Hope everyone is having a pleasant Saturday. I'm live, back again, with the How to Write an Essay series. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Samuel, your friendly internet uncle that wants to help you get into philosophy. And I am sorry I cannot be as energetic or focused as other days. I had a rather crappy night. Like to the point I should probably go to a doctor soon, and I don't like it. It's just not fun not being able to sleep well. But a commitment is a commitment, and here we are, ready to talk about arguments and essays and all that fun stuff. So let's recap. Today I want to go over research, style, and structure, and don't let me deceive you when I talk about style. I don't mean like actual cool style, like writing in a witty, cool, aesthetically pleasant way. I mean it in the citation style meaning, which, if you don't know, we'll see soon what it means. But it is about the nerdiest, most bureaucratic part of writing. Yet it's necessary, and I will try to provide good reasons as to why we should not feel it as a burden. So, what's going on? Kids, and I say kids because I'm way older, but people in the 18 to 22 age range are having trouble writing because of generational accidents in terms of COVID during their formative year, and then with the now collapsing AI generating industry. I'm feeling slightly optimistic in a sicko sort of way because there are more and more emerging flaws and limitations in the supposedly revolutionary AI generation industry. Well, but because of that and some other reasons and just a general shitty education system, people don't seem to be able to write. They're struggling with classes. They are not learning, not applying what they learn, and generally not being able to communicate their thoughts. So I'm doing this series to help people overcome that. There's material about this online, but it's either too cold, academic for my taste. Like they're not explaining, like they're assuming a lot of stuff about the audience. Hello Rupert, hello Setter. How you doing? No, I am late. I meant to start it at 6 p.m. On my time zone. It is now 7 p.m. on my time zone, but I had to delay an hour because today just felt really bad. Not I cannot tell you exactly why or to point to a specific cause. Just when you get older and you don't sleep, life just sucks. Anyways, so yeah, people don't work good, so I want to help people write. There are some materials about this, but either they're just too sterile, that's the word I was looking for, too sterile, and seem to presuppose that people already know why they're doing what they're doing. And I just wanted to give my own version with my own touch and a little more personal appeal. I'm currently doing some job training quizzes. I mean, it's generally a good idea to understand how your job works so you can bypass the arbitrary rules more effectively, so it's not all that bad. So yeah, this is like what we've done on the past two sessions. We established that an essay is a short text meant to discuss a single idea or subject. We suggest that there should be only one core argument, one central thesis or idea you want to prove or defend. And there are more personal essays, but usually in order to write a good personal essay, you need to already be able to have some of the so-called critical thinking skills, some analysis. Setter says, I missed the second session when my sleep schedule was more tame. Oh no. Well, no time to learn like the present. We went over that a statement for us for this practical goal is a clear, simple, singular declaration. It is a sentence or something that can be extracted from a sentence that says the world is like this. This is factual. This is truthful. This has some informational content. Which version varies upon your philosophical commitments, but we're all just trying to get something good enough for people to do work. Statements are usually, but not always, done in writing through simple declarative sentences such as John runs, such as I did not sleep well at night, such as the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. Those are all examples of declarative statements. We've gone over that there are some issues, philosophically speaking, with the logical positivism inspired notion that a statement should be empirically verifiable. Not really always, and it's a troublesome notion, but it's better than nothing, and it's good enough to get you on your feet as you start writing. We also went over last week that we're going to distinguish between arguing as an action, as an event that is politically and socially informed, an argument as a static block of information, as the solidified results of arguing as an activity. This is not like an absolute truth. This is merely one categorical system or one method of ordering your ideas or thoughts that some people suggest, but it's not like you have to marry to this definition. It's, again, just good enough for doing work. And our definition of an argument is gonna be the standard basic argument they teach you over at any basic humanities course at university or college. We're gonna take a sequence of statements and divide them into parts. Most of the statements are gonna be the premise, and one of them is gonna be the conclusion. And the conclusion is going to be our thesis or the main idea we want to support in our essay. There is also a not explicit but present element called the inferential nexus, which is the part that indicates that there is a information calculus from the premises to the conclusion, such that if the premises are true, then the conclusion either has to be true, in the sense of if we're using a deductive argument, or it is likely to be true if we're using some other forms of argument we went over last week. All of the VODs are on YouTube, so you can watch that if you're interested. And let's keep going. Okay, so we also went over that the conclusions in school essays are a bit of trick. The ideal form, the idealized form of research is just, starting with no preconceptions, no biases, and trying to find the pure truth through objective, uninterested study. That never happens. That's just fantasy that serves to illustrate some conceivable idealized notion. But we always have some systems. We are always starting from a set of beliefs or structures or ideology. So it's not that we can just arrive at conclusions through pure dispassionate study of the world. But we also should not start from a dogmatic stance. Like, this has to be true, and I will do everything as possible, and I will never yield, and I will never challenge my beliefs. That is also a completely unproductive way to engage in this type of intellectual exchange. This kind of mood because in school they will generally give you either a conclusion or a general prompt, something of a provocation to get you writing. Examples of prompts or assigned conclusions they give you at school. Sorry that this comes from philosophy, but it's the area of study I am most familiar with. So, for example, is explain why Hobbes, as in Thomas Hobbes, the 17th century political thinker, needs the figure of the sovereign as part of his political project in his book, The Leviathan. Or another example of a prompted conclusion will be intelligent machines can now do most human labor better than humans. Some teachers will play it straight and give you, yeah, this is true, and I want to hear your thoughts as to why that makes it true. They're basically helping you play at arguing by starting from a safe conclusion that can be actually defended. While the second example, the intelligent machines can now do most human labor better than humans, is not a safe conclusion. It is debatable. I personally believe it is false. So some teachers can tell you, okay, this is a thesis statement. You can either argue for it or against it. And so you do not always need to agree with the statement suggested. You can try to refute it. And refutation is basically arguing for the falsehood or the opposite of the suggested thesis. Whether it's the falsehood or opposite or negation, again, depends on your particular philosophical stance. Some people don't think that things are either true or false, and thus refuting something is not the same as proving its falsehood. That generally is the case in mathematics. Generally. But even in mathematics, there are things that are neither provable or unprovable, which is a mindfuck, but that's for another day. Yeah, you can refute something by either proving its falsehood or by... You can do other things, such as, for example, saying that the statement is meaningless, or rather that it's not a statement at all. For example, a possible way you can do this is by saying the idea that human labor has to compete or measure against machines is a false notion. So saying that intelligent machines can do human labor better is a mistaken use of the word better. The word better doesn't make sense in that sentence, and so that statement is neither true or false, it is entirely meaningless. That's another way of refuting something. Anyways, those are just examples, those just to give you a general idea of where you can get your conclusions. If the essay is open, and it's just like write your own thoughts or read this and tell me what you thought about it, or you just want to write something that you yourself want in social media or something you believe in for personal reasons, well, that's also a method for getting a conclusion. But it's not a conclusion yet. It will be better to call it a thesis. And because this is an open process and we are advocating against dogmatism, we should be open to the idea of our conclusion changing or becoming more nuanced or even being wrong. Maybe we started with a wrong thesis and we did the research, we did some experiments, we asked people, we found other arguments, and we are now convinced that we were wrong. Our initial thesis statement was naive or mistaken or not well formed. And if that's the case, that's good, because that's how our human knowledge advances. It displays a tremendous amount of intellectual honesty to incorporate that in an essay. If we say, oh, well, I originally wanted to prove this, or I believe in this, but then by doing research, I found that that is not the case, and I now believe the opposite, that is tremendously useful, especially right now in an age where we are being socially indoctrinated to never concede, to always dig in our heels and tire and be stubborn with other people. And we falsely call that winning. Yeah, don't do that. That's gonna break your mind. Dogmatic minds are static. They are fragile. They ossify. And when something is ossified, it can be broken. Seeking mind is active. It is like living muscle. It can be hurt, it can change, but it becomes stronger by it. If you cannot tell, Bruce Lee is one of my greatest inspirations. So yeah, basically, be water in this sense. Be flexible, be aware, be conscious, and be willing to concede once you have been exhausted and can no longer defend a process and there are superior reasons. It is good to concede. Anyways, so now that we have a conclusion, where do we get our premises? How do we form an argument so that we can justify or analyze or expand, or whatever verb you prefer, the conclusion? And the answer is reading. You have to read. Most research is done through reading. There's no escaping this, no ifs, no buts. No, but I want to watch a YouTube. No. I want to listen to a podcast. No. I mean, you can do that. But those are complementary activities. The main source of research is done through text. Like, I'm really sorry if either COVID or life or watching YouTube videos with butthole surfers in the background has ruined your concentration span and you can no longer read. That has to be remedied. I mean, you are lacking access to so much of human culture. And please don't take this as an ableist thing. I myself have gone through periods in my life where I have been physically unable to read. Either because I can read the words, but I just don't have any mental energy left to learn or to go through what I'm actually reading. I'm just moving my eyes over text. And there have been periods in my life where I am so exhausted that I see a book and I see that there are lines, but I am unable to parse that as words. It is miserable. It can happen to all of us. But we can go back. I am not sure if this can be true for everyone. I wish it were true for everyone, because reading can also be incredibly gratifying, pleasurable, interesting, edifying. I wish everyone could read. I hope everyone can read. And our capacity for lecture can be retrained. We can start again with basic things. Short stories. comics, and then slowly grow back our capacity to read. But really, if you are in high school or university, you have to be able to read. You have to be able to read books. Being unable to do so is going to leave a huge hole in your education. There's just, don't blame me, blame reality. That's just how it is. I really wish there could be solutions or methods for people with ADHD or some other learning disabilities. But it's a problem that you have to finesse around rather than avoid. Audiobooks are an alternative. They're better than podcasts, anyways. School courses must have a syllabus, which is a short 1 or 2 page introduction of what the course is, what the goals are, how are you going to be graded, and very importantly, what are the books used in building this course. Your teachers also have to read, and what they teach has to be backed up by further and further chains of sources and previous work. Maybe it's a very experimental class that your teacher wants to give of a new theory they have. Okay, that may be the case for postgrad. Teachers in high school and entry-level university have to fulfill as a program. They cannot invent courses out of nowhere. And courses have to have a syllabus, and they have to have a main book that is informing the course and complementary reading. If they don't, it's a bad course. Yeah, I'm slandering a lot of teachers. I don't care. I'm willing to die on this hill. Okay, so a syllabus can tell you what books are used, but how do we actually get those books? There's legal methods and not so legal methods. Because of TOS reasons, I cannot go over the non-legal methods, but I'll just say that the bulk of academic growth since the 2000s has been built from piracy. If you have a problem with piracy, then you have a problem with most of the world getting a degree. Everyone I met at college, everyone I work with at university, up to the PhD ranks, they all use pirated material. But again, I am ethically committed and willing to defend the use of digital archival of academic texts. But for TOS reasons, I shall not. I will go over the legal methods, and they are very good. Like, you can get a lot of stuff legally. Anyways, Rupert says, thankfully, beyond a couple of classes with broken links, most of my teachers do have Google Drives with actual books. AI is being tacitly allowed in ours, though. Yeah, some of the people I work with at Philos, at my faculty, they are on the AI bandwagon, and I really want to help them understand that it's a bad idea. Anyways, one of the best sources for classic books, and for classic I mean everything from 100 years ago backwards. So from the early 20th century backwards, very few things have copyright. It's Craig Gutenberg. Craig Gutenberg has a crapload of really good books in several formats: PDF, EPUB, HTML. They even have a large collection of audiobooks. If you want to go over the text while you work out or while you drive or while you're in public transportation. I cannot sing enough praises of Project Gutenberg. It's a great website. Bookmark it. The only problem, and this is just like the problem of the internet in general, is that it mainly has texts in English. It is an English resource site. This is good and bad. One of the ways I complemented a lot of lectures when I was in college was that I would read particularly difficult texts both in English and in Spanish. And that way I could cover the things I found vague and confusing in one language in the other. And by doing that double lecture, I managed to understand a lot of shit that would have been very confusing if I had just stuck on one language. If you are in high school or college, then you should have access to a school library. And they tend to be well stocked. Public libraries are also a good resource if you have one near you. Just go and ask. Go and look for the section relevant to your homework. And literally just browse books. It's there. The people who work there maybe even be kind enough to give you recommendations. If you're in a university, it's a big unit. They tend to have school access to JSTOR or similar. JSTOR is it's not a site I like a lot. Rather than site, I'm going to call it an institution. It's one of the biggest digital archives of academic texts. And they're assholes. Like they are there for the money. It's a for-profit institution. But if you want access to academic journals and essays, they're a good source, and most universities tend to have programs that already grant you access. So ask your local either your local school library or your local administrator if you have access to JSTOR. I know people at UNAM have access to JSTOR, so Rupert, there you go. If you have a UNAM account, you can access JSTOR. And if you have access to JSTOR, you can download things and share them with others through other means. But yeah, you did not hear that from me. Also, because sites like JSTOR and most editorials are evil, like evil exploitative pieces of shit, many academics have a preprint copy of their work. And if you just ask them, tell them, hey, I want to do the homework, and I think you touch upon a subject that I find interesting, and I want to quote you on this. You can just message them, and they will give you the preprint copy of their work. Twitter used to be amazing for this. There was a community, a great community of academics on Twitter that you could just be able to ask, and they will not only give you the articles for free, they will actually talk to you and help you, because most academics are nerds and they want other people to know about their work. So yeah, keep that in mind. When you're asking an academic about their own work, the vast majority of them will be ecstatic to help you. There are some that will mock you because they're asshats, and fuck those people. Those are the people that tend to have tenure, they tend to be rockstar, they tend to be wealthy and influential. Fuck those people. But you don't lose nothing by just asking, okay? Find the people you're interested in reading and tell them you want to study their work. Most of the time they will help you. So fuck it, go ahead. And there's obviously Wikipedia. The problem with Wikipedia is that it's great for engineering, it's great for chemistry, great for some history, but it sucks absolute donkey ass at politics. Wikipedia is a liberal capitalist site, and nearly everything that has to do with politics, especially politics regarding nations that are unwelcome in liberal capitalist society, such as the DPRK, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, are full of misinformation or just basically gladio, pro-Western propaganda and bias. Radio Free Asia is used as a source. It's shit. Don't use Wikipedia for politics. Be careful of this. But also, generally speaking, I suggest not quoting Wikipedia directly. Wikipedia is probably just the first thing you'll find when you Google X term or problem. And you can read the entry. Read it critically. Read it knowing that there are strong biases moving around Wikipedia, so don't take everything they say as a automatic truth. And that's just to give you a general gist or idea of the topic at hand. Then you go to the readings section or the sources section, and then read that. Rupert says, was watching this one bit debunking an anarchist YouTuber, and he cited a Wikipedia article that said 96% of communist project, whatever the fuck that ever means, all failed. Black book of communism type shit. Yeah. We are in an information war that is heavily biased in favor of liberal capitalism political interests. So yeah, don't use Wikipedia as a source for political stuff. Like, yeah, not at all. Not good. So yeah, once you go through to the bottom part of a Wikipedia article, they have for the reading and external links. That's the shit you want. Those are the next step in the chain of sources. And here you can see, for example, one, Project Gutenberg, which I just mentioned. Good shit. Internet Archive, amazing site. Internet Archive also tends to have a lot of good texts that are free of copyright, or even things that are copyrighted and you can read as a borrow. Of course, the bourgeoisie do not like that and are trying to fuck Internet Archive as much as they can. So please visit the Internet Archive. Get familiarized with the project. They do really good shit. They are the main source for digital archival of the internet, as the name implies out there. Really, really kick-ass site. Another strong recommendation. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy is a really good site for philosophy. The problem is that the articles are they tend to be very thorough. The problem is that they're accessible or completely unpenetrable horseshit that only dedicated PhDs and postdocs can even parse. It is a site that does struggle with over-specialization of its target audience. So it's a bit of a gamble if you get an accessible article or something that it's definitely for specialists. And again, as the name mentioned, it's mostly only useful for philosophy stuff. Okay, so using the syllabus or asking your teacher or asking people around, you finally have a text. You have either a book, an article, or a collection of those things, maybe even a YouTube video doing analysis on the subject. Now you will spend 80% of the process of making an essay reading, watching, and thinking about those things. That's just how it is. You have to do the reading, and you have to immerse yourself on it, and you have to do active, conscious reading. You cannot just read this as if it were like a a novel or a storybook. It requires a type of reading that is slow, deliberate, and asks you to stop every now and then to ask yourself, okay, but why though? Why is this the case? Or why is he saying this? Or is this true? Do I believe it? Is this compatible with my beliefs? What are the consequences of this? And that is a much more complex activity that I cannot go over today. But that's just basically the art of conscious active reading. Once you do that, you're now in the position to actually start writing. And a good way to mentally imagine this whole process is that we are collating key passages of the source text and using that information to do one of several things. We can use those texts we read to clarify the problem, to analyze. By that I mean breaking down the implicit information in the conclusion that we want to reach or the problem at hand. We want to argue, pressure the audience into believing something or against something. We want to contrast. That is, if we read multiple sources or multiple attempts to solve a problem, we can say, well, these two problems are these two texts are both different attempts to solve the problem, and they reach different conclusions. So this is different from that. That is a contrast. That is a very useful technique for dealing with historical problems, like laying down the breadth of options we have to face a problem or task, or refuting, which we mentioned earlier. This process is basically a form of necromancy or divination, depends on how you want to call it. We are engaging in dialogue with the famous dead. Reading like this, unlike reading a technical book or a manual, is a type of arguing. You are not supposed to read during your research and agree with everything you read or take it as true, not automatically. You have to engage in a back and forth. Because if you don't do that, then you will not know which parts are salient or important or key. So you will have read something and not have anything to show for this effort. You want to extract what is most valuable to you in the context of the problem you want to argue for. And that cannot be achieved by a passive lecture or just going, oh, well, I guess Plato's an important guy. He was like very famous and shit, so I guess he's right, I guess. That kind of dispassionate, uncritical reading is a waste of time in this context. You have to be a bit of a debate bro with the dead. And that's fine. They are dead. They don't care. But also, don't be patronizing. Don't just assume that you can just ignore what they say. The trick is engaging with the famous dead with respect. Think like you are Goku and they are Vegeta. You cannot just underestimate them, but you also don't want to let them win. You have to face it as a form of ritualized combat, so to speak. The result of this process is that we'll find specific passages that we find particularly clarifying or useful or illuminating or interesting. Once you have isolated those passages in which your debate partner, so to speak, says something that you think, oh yeah, this kicks ass, you extract that passage and start a quotation block. And for that, we need to do the most boring and bureaucratic part of doing an essay, citation styles.
Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Why do we need to use citation styles and be thorough with our quotations and be very boring about this? Because if we don't, we end up being like Senator Armstrong, and Senator Armstrong is a bad person. We cannot just say shit. We cannot just claim stuff because we made it the fuck up. We cannot prove everything we want to prove in a text by ourselves. Some of the premises we use need to be the result of the effort of other people. And it will be extremely dishonest to read that effort and just use that without explaining where you got it from. That, my friends, mis amigos, is plagiarism. And that is part of why AI is so bad. So-called AI. I really did not like this part of writing essays when I started. And I generally still consider it like a buzz killer. Once I get my flow state on and start taka writing, it's fun. I like doing it. But then I get to the part where I have to slow down, cut the inspiration, and start doing mechanical, tedious work of editing, inserting sources, inserting quotes, and using a very specific and methodical apparatus which we call citation styles. But I've learned that there are very good reasons to do so. The most important one, which I kind of suggested earlier, is that sourcing signals tells the audience, basically, which parts of the text are of our authorship and which ones are not. That is the main reason we source and we quote and we use citations. Partially, sadly, because there is an economic incentive to providing attribution of works. People who write essays for a living, who write books for a living, need to play in the shit game of intellectual property. So we don't wanna break that, sadly. I mean, not until we finally establish a socialist economy. We are still operating, at least in the West, we're still operating under the constraints of capitalism, and under capitalism, the only way the people who write essays and books get paid is by respecting their work and attributing their sources. So we do that. But it's more than just money. It's also a question about respect. It's a question about not being a faker. That's a shit thing to do, for both for your audience and for yourself. Because if you do that, you will start cultivating a fear and paranoia. You will start thinking that you're a fake and a fraud. What's the actual term for this? Imposter syndrome. Which, if you're a plagiarist, then it's not a syndrome. You are being an imposter, so don't do that. There are people who do make their academic careers out of this. There are people who make academic careers out of stealing the work of others. And that's just bad for everyone. We must learn of the defenestration of James Somerton. Excellent example, Rupert. Absolutely magnificent example. If you have 4 hours... Is it 4 hours? H. Bomber guy, James Somerton. Yeah, Plagiarism and You is 3 hours and 51 minutes of why you should not make a career out of being a plagiarist. Don't be like James Somerton. That guy's a dickwad. Don't steal the work of others. No, not just for the money. because it still matters. It's still a relevant fact. But because you will ultimately fail. If you become famous by stealing the work of others, you will fall under scrutiny. And there will be a massive autistic nerd that will show up and tell you, hey, you are a fake and a fraud. And your fall from grace will be everlasting. Anyways, another good reason is that when you source and people read you, then the people who read you can also trace back the ideas they want to learn about to these other texts. So it helps people do backtracing to the original point or the original debate. And that helps people understand, that helps people make history, that helps even you. Later on, when you reread your work, that will help you understand, oh, I was reading this. I was really into this idea. Or, this book was interesting, I should read it again. So yeah, that's another good reason. Related to the first one, but more specific, citations help the wailing souls of academia keep their jobs. The more citations you get once you're in academia, the more academic slave points you earn. And these said entities need all the help they can get. Yeah, that's a very good analogy, Rupert. Having sources in your text is a lot like having good, clean, readable code. It helps other people understand what you're on about better. The third point looks similar to the first, but no, I mean it specifically. Academia is perverse. So people are not paid for how much social good they do. They get paid for these absurd measures. And one of these measures is citations. The more you're cited, the more you're quoted, the more you earn this nebulous thing called prestige. And that makes it easier to get raises, to get tenure, to get classes, to get more people under your research program, and so on. So yeah, it's just part of not being a dick. These people already suffer. They chose to be in academia. Their lives are already miserable. Don't make it more miserable, please. But personally, the main reason why I like sourcing and quoting, what motivates me, is that it helps us knit a web of shared ideas, study, and data points. It shows that human knowledge is a social, collective effort. When I don't read, I'm like in the zone and like taka, writing, yeah. I motivate myself by thinking, yeah, when I do this, when I am thorough with my quotations, with my references and so on, I am helping build a collective web of knowledge. I am incorporating my work as part of the human endeavor to understand the world. And that motivates me. I hope it motivates you. Okay, and here we go to the actual boring, tedious part. The styles. The best thing is to just ask your teacher, hey teacher, which citation style should I use? And they will tell you. Usually teachers already have a preferred standard. And if not your professor, then your school or college already has one. The most common ones back in my day were APA, the American Psychological Association style, and Chicago style. And because these are standards, these are just formatting styles to make things easier to read for people and machines. The style manuals for these are free. You can just Google, hey, what's the APA or Chicago style manual of use, and you can find one. This is a book or manual that it benefits the people who use them if everyone knows how to use them, so don't worry about that. Okay, it's difficult to like read a style manual from cover to cover, The basic ones, I'm going to use APA. This is the American Psychological Association style when I'm using these examples. The most basic one you're going to use for school essays is the whole authored book format, which is displayed here, screen capture from the official APA website. Basically, it is last name, first name, contracted to the first letter, year of publication, title of book, and then either the editorial or the DOI. The DOI is an international archiving system, which is very useful if you want to get books from Sci-Hub. And it's basically like an identification number for a publication, so it's really handy. If it has a published website, you can put that instead of editorial or DOI. But these things you put at the end of your text. When you mention the text, you basically say, hey, according to this person, this idea. And that's a paraphrasing. See? That's when you're using paraphrasing. And then you put this. This is the short parenthetical citation, which is just last name, year, or last name of the first author, second author, and year. That's it. That's for the APA. Just last name, year. It is very unlikely that an author has more than two books, has more than one book in a single year. If that is the case, then yeah, you need to provide something that tells the audience which of those publications you mean. When you actually put the quote, like copy and paste the whole quote from the book, you need to do a narrative citation, which is very similar, just at the end of either at the end of the quote block or as a footnote. And yes, you can also use APA to quote web pages. The thing about web pages, though, is that they die all the time. So you need to include a retrieval date, and ideally, you want to download a copy as a PDF and include that as a secondary source. Yep. The idea of saving web pages, either as HTML or PDFs, is really good because, again, web pages can die in as little as 1 year. They're not stable, so it's best to use books if you can. But if you absolutely must use a web page, then make your own copy, make your own archival copy by downloading it as a PDF or HTML and saving it. And yes, you can also quote YouTube videos because I know some of y'all still do this. But even then, there are some good video essays out there. The problem with YouTube videos is the same as web pages. YouTube is unreliable. The account may be deleted, or the person may just quit, or whatever. So there is still the problem of archival. And it is more difficult to make an archival of a 4-hour Harry Bomber Guy video than a web page. So yeah, bit of a problem there. But I mean, if you have to, you can. There are many other formats for many other sources, but those are just like the ones I could think will be the most useful for someone who is just starting. There is no avoiding the fact that you need to download a copy of the APA or Chicago Manual Style or whatever style they use at your school, and you have to learn how to use it. There's no escape. I am sorry, it sucks. It is boring, but you have to do it. To actually provide a quote, in the APA style, you start a new paragraph and indent in deeper than the main text. And then you attribute the source of the text in the style format you're using. This is APA. Last name, first name, shortened, year, name of book or publication. This is an example of how it looks like in a text. The main text, as you see, has a larger doesn't have as much indent as the quote. The quote is a part that exists in an indented block space. And it ends with last name, year, and the page you're quoting. If you want to be specific and say exactly which page you're quoting from, that's good. That's something that other researchers will thank you for, because instead of reading the entire book, they can just go to the exact page you're using. And because of that is why also we include the edition of the books we're citing, because what pages are there changes depending on the number of pages you can find the quote varies depending on the edition. That's why it is important. Or even the text itself. Some editions vary widely in the content, so there's that. Also, if for some reason you want to quote the Bible, or you want to quote Plato or Aristotle or some other select authors, they have their own specific quoting system, because they are just, important texts, I guess. Or they are just quoted so often that they basically have their own citation system. Anyways, this is what you see in the text, and then in the bibliography section or the works reference section, you see this. This is Salomon 2009, and this is the full citation entry. Justification and Queer Method or Living Philosophy. Hypatius, the magazine, it was published. 24, blah, blah, blah. Pages 225 to 230. So yeah, that's how it ends up looking once you do it. Okay, now that you have these quotation blocks, these paragraphs or these lines where you think, oh, this is a good idea, this is a good summary, or this is very clarifying, and you have all of this format and ready to copy and paste, so your inspiration is not cut off, you can actually start to write. But before you start writing proper, I suggest building your essay around a text skeleton of sorts, a basic structure. The one I suggest, this is of course not a rule at all, this is just what works for me, and it may work for you, it may not, but try it out and maybe it'll click, maybe it won't. Is introduction, problematization, the main body, conclusions, bibliography, and consulted work. I split each part into what they do, into their functions. In the introduction, I use that part to explain what they want to do. If you want to start that part, just go. In this essay, I will then. Again, in your first essays, don't be cute. Don't start with a story. Don't start with something grandiose. Don't start with saying throughout history, thinkers have struggled to understand the blah, blah, blah. Just, no. Explain in plain language what you want to do. I want to do this. I want to prove this. I want to study this. I want to analyze this concept. I want to point out the differences between this and that. That's it. A declaration of intent. That really helps. Once you've told your audience what you want to do and how you plan to do it, you can start presenting the problem. Basically, why this matters. Why is this a thing? That's where you can actually introduce the idea. Okay, well, this person and this person and this other person have argued against this. And if this is true, if this version or this interpretation is true, then this happens. If it is false, then this other thing happens. Or set people for a war over this. That is a good introduction to the reader as to what is at stake. Why they should care, why this matters, why it's a problem at all. And then you get to the main part of the text, which is where you start introducing your premises one by one. This is where you put your quotes and where you extract statements from them and say, okay, well, according to this person, we are fairly certain that this is the case, this is true. And this is basically the trickiest part. You have to start leading the reader into understanding what is going on. What things are considered true, what things are considered to be probably true, what things may have been considered true at one point but have been proven to be false, what is conjecture, what is scientific fact, and so on, so on. Basically introducing all of the elements that will allow you to build the core argument. The core argument is a part of the main body. It's just a very important and special part. It is where, now that you have presented your premises and sourced them, you can lay down the argument as simply as possible. If this is true, and this is true, then this conclusion has to be true. Or is likely to be true, or I have defended my analysis, or I have defended my comparison, and so on, so on. It's where you try to defend or convince the reader that the thing you wanted to do in the introduction, you have actually done it. And then, after this stressful part, comes the relief. Now that we have presented an argument, we can extend some of the conclusion to other things. This is where we use the elements we lay down in the problematization. If this was a problem, then we have solved it. And if we have solved it, now we can do this. That is the conclusions. And after the conclusions comes not something that is not part of the text, but still important, which is the bibliography and consulted work. Basically, that thing, like in Wikipedia, that. A version of that, but for your book, for your essay. That's basically the part where you put all the references so that the reader can consult the work that you consulted in the first place, or that you can faithfully source the materials you used in the body of text, as we saw in this example. So this is part of the text. This you introduce as part of your essay, and then in the bibliography or consulted works part, you put this. This is the full citation. And this is an example of how you can start an essay with this structure. You start with the basic elements necessary for identifying your essay among the rest of your class. You start with the name of your institution. In this case, it's the fictional Cool People's University. And then you put the name of your course. Cool Class for Thinking Good. That's the name of the course we're having. Then you put the date in sensible non-American format. Day, month, year. That is going to be useful for both your teacher and you to have a more comfortable time knowing when this homework was made or when this essay was delivered. And then you put your name. Okay? Then you start the text with the very basic. In this essay, I will, bam. I know it's not stylish, I know it's not cool, but it is simple and easy to read. And I think this is the second time I mentioned, simple and easy to read is better than cool. Us teachers grade anywhere from 5 to 40 essays. Simple and easy to read is a blessing. We will thank you for it. And then the problematization. Example of problematization is, in the 18th century, several thinkers struggled to account for the problem at hand. And then in the main body, you put something like, Cosme Fulanito has written that, or our latest scientific models have shown that, and then you put the sources you have in your citation blocks. Because you cannot just make shit the fuck up. If you say that Cosme Fulanito said something, you have to put a quote of Cosme Fulanito saying the thing. It sounds simple, but a lot of people don't do it. Please do it. An example of what an argument statement might look like is the following. Given what Fulanito in 2009, this is like a part of our citation style, and the other analysis I presented, the only options are either Tanganyika or Tanganana. However, since Tanganana fails to explain this phenomenon because Tanganana no explica nada, we can only conclude that Tanganyika is correct. That's an argument format called disjunctive syllogism. We have two options. One of them is not the case, then it has to be the other. Or basically, truth by elimination. An example of how to introduce a conclusion statement or element will be, now that I provided a strong argument for Tanganyika, we can also see that pam 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 pam, and you explain the things that are true or interesting or worthy of considering now that you have given an argument as to why Tanganyika is true. And in your bibliography, you put this is a mockery of Apple style. You put last name, first name, Fulanito, C, for Cosme, 2009, which is the year of publication, the name of the article or book, Tanganyika and Tanganana, the struggle of two competing theories of semantic extensionalism, which is a completely made up essay, in case you couldn't tell, by Cool University Press. Now, with this structure, all you need to do is link the parts and fill out the claims. It avoids the problem of just staring at a white page and going, oh shit, how do I start? What do I do? Now, this essay format, I can share. Once this goes on YouTube, on the VOD, I will put a link to this. It's going to be in ODT because fuck Microsoft Word. We use LibreOffice. So you can download this as a skeleton and start your essays like this. Obviously modify it instead of Cold Pulpit University, write your institution and write your name instead of mine, obviously. But this is hopefully good enough to get you started or to give you a general sense of direction on how to start writing. And that is all I have in this presentation. Are there any questions? Anything I went over that you all would like me to review or check again? Is it understood why it is so important to source, to provide quotations and attribution to the ideas of other people? I'm fine, but that's it for today. Like, it's shorter than the other sessions, but no less important. Rupert says, any chance you will do this in Spanish in some form? Let's just say, from what I've seen from classmates and my own mistakes, it might be sorely needed here too. Oh, crap. Well, I mean, yeah. It will be easy to do so because I already have the material in English. I will just need to apply it. Yeah, I can do this. I can do this in Spanish, no problem. Like, once I finish the series in English, I can just do it again, but in Spanish. Neat. Anyways, I was thinking that maybe I could end the stream here, this stream, so I can get a VOD and then play some Balatro, but no, I really do feel kind of like ass, and I want to rest. I want to see if I can take a nap. So, yeah, if there are no further questions, that's all I got for today. Sorry for the extremely short stream, but yeah, sometimes shit just happens. Okay, then it's the thing. We have 6 viewers, which is not a lot, but enough for a raid. So I'm gonna send you all to a comrade. Bye.